Hello everyone, I'm Asha Nayaswami. This is a very brief introduction to a short video which follows. The video is completely different than anything else you're going to find on this channel. It's a little tutorial in how to make a 3-layer face mask, which is what the do-it-yourself version that the CDC in America and all over the world people are advising us to wear. I myself realized a few days into this sequestered period suddenly that there was something I could really do from home, which was sew, because it's something I happen to know how to do. And I gradually figured out, using someone else's pattern, I didn't invent this, the most efficient way to make this, and so I've given a little instruction here. It's practical in that sense. It's also in the hope that some of you who really haven't really considered that there was a way that you could actively contribute, your family, your friends, your community, the heroes that are out there serving us, the nurses and the doctors. There's a great shortage of these things. I also, by breaking the process of production down into different steps, there's actually several steps that even children could do. So some of you who are home as families, it might be a good thing both for you and your children to get into production on these. And even if you can't produce that many, it would give everyone involved a feeling of being able to contribute. And it certainly seems at this time, the more all of us can contribute, the better we'll be. So friends, just so you'll know when you start into this is not philosophy, this is not self-realization, but this is divine seva. And I hope in one way or another, it also brings you closer to a way of giving back to God all the ingratitude for all that God has given to us. I have been working for the last couple of weeks making homemade cloth masks for the people in my community here in Ananda, Palo Alto. We have an intentional community here, and plus some friends and neighbors. And so I've been working making a cloth mask. We're a little ahead of the curve in feeling the importance of wearing these, but now everybody wants to wear them, and I've worked out some good ideas, and I just wanted to share it with you. This is the product that we're working with. This is in accordance with a pattern that was created by a nurse, a Kaiser nurse named Gretchen. Her pattern might be on the internet. I've modified it a little bit to keep exactly the same important qualifications, but a couple of things that just frankly make it easier to sew, but have nothing to do with its effectiveness. It's 3 layers, which everybody's recommending now. It's 3 layers of closely woven cotton. They particularly say that batik is good cotton, which this one happens to be, which is this kind of a crazy pattern is batik of all kinds. And this is just regular cotton, but good quality cotton, or cotton, whatever you happen to have, and 1 layer of 100% cotton batting. Gretchen designed this. She's a nurse. She wanted something that a nurse could wear for an 8-hour shift, that it would be comfortable. You could put in the wash and put on the next day, and it would be durable. She did not want any synthetics because she felt little fibers, they would be breathing in the fibers. She also spoke against flannel. I realize on the internet now they're talking about flannel. She said flannel releases dust, the dust of its own particles. It's still cotton, but she preferred cotton batting. Before you do anything, you need to wash everything, including the batting, in hot water and with detergent, and also then put it in a hot dryer. It's partly to get out any sizing or anything that's in there, but also cotton, 100% cotton will shrink. And if you make your mask first and then wash it, the pieces will shrink differently and all your work could easily be wasted. Okay, so what you end up is 2 layers of cotton with battering in the middle. If you're a seamstress at all, you end up with all kinds of fabric in your house, and this is finally when you're justified in having had it all the time. I do costumes for an elementary school, and I've collected fabric over 10 years, and now I'm getting to use it all. You might as well have fun. These are just some of the samples of everything I'm using. The 2 pieces of fabric, and this is where I've modified the design a little. The basic design was 7 inches square, and your batting is 7 inches square. But for various reasons, it's easier to sew if your fabric is 9 inches square. Okay, so that's the main difference I've made. Plus, some of the patterns include a little separate edging which in the needs of the moment we don't need. So we need cotton. It doesn't have to be two different colors, but since this mask is going to be worn right up against your face, of course, and if you happen to wear it for a long period of time, like a nurse's shift or even several times during the day, you want to always know what the inside is so that you won't accidentally put the outside against your mouth. They're exactly the same on both sides, so you can match your outfits depending on how you feel about it. So 2 pieces of cotton cut in a 9-inch square, 1 piece of batting cut in a 7-inch square. Then you also need something for these strings. If you want to be fancy, you can take your same fabric. You can use a strip, an unfinished strip, which is a little rustic, if you like that. Or you can take your unfinished strip, which is 1.5 inches, fold it into a narrow strip like that, stitch it, all of which takes quite a lot of time. If you're just making a handful of masks, that's perfectly fine. If you're making more, this is cotton macrame string, which works great. This is ribbon, which works great. This was somebody's brilliant idea. This is half of a very long shoelace, which also works great. And then you also need some wire across the nose, because otherwise the thing crawls up into your eyes and it's extremely uncomfortable to wear. So you need to be able to wire it across the top. Pipe cleaner is absolutely perfect, but this is actually floral wire, which is very thin, and I was using it like I was using three folds of it and twisting it together. Picture wire, you get the idea. But a 12-inch pipe cleaner cut in half, goes to 6, is perfect. I also recently discovered that there are 6-inch pipe cleaners, so you can also get those. You want to be sure whatever wire you use that you bend the edges, otherwise your little sharp edge will cut through your mask and tear it and poke your person, and they won't like you very much for having given it to them. So now what I'm going to do, I have every stage of the sewing of a mask here, so I'm just going to show you what I've found to be the most efficient way to do it. First, I will say, I sew these ribbons in as I go along in a way that makes them slightly, really, it's simply more aesthetic. And I don't find it takes any more work. If you don't want to bother with that, you just finish the whole mask, forget everything I say about the ribbons or the ties. When you're finished with the mask, you just stitch them on to the outside, as long as you use a strong enough stitch so they won't come loose. Okay, but here's what I've done. I have my 2 pieces of fabric. I take one, it doesn't matter which one, and I take the batting and I'm going to tack it on to this piece just with one stitch. I'll show you in a minute what I do. I do this entirely because otherwise, at a later stage in production, you have to stuff it in, and I found that stuffing it in was annoying and time-consuming. So if I attached it here, and I'll show you just sort of simply, very simply how I do it, just one straight stitch across, then you have to remember that this has now become the wrong side of your fabric. This particular fabric doesn't have a wrong side, but the batting is stitched onto the wrong side. Then I take my other piece of fabric, whatever it is, and on the right side of that fabric, I attach my ties, whatever they are. And the same thing, it's just, a stitch right across. You can manage this with pins, but I found that the pins were more annoying and difficult than what it took to just attach. So onto the right side of one fabric, you attach the strings. And the tricky thing is, you tend to want to attach the string going that way. And you have to do that. I only had to do it maybe 10 times before I realized that, no, it always goes this way, because when you turn the thing right side out, they need to be on the inside. So I attach them here, and I attach it here. So this is my first stage. I pin it. My second stage is I stitch where those pins are. Now you can see that even the square is not cut very well. This is not a finely engineered product. We are not going for the 4H blue ribbon, and my sewing teacher from when I was 12 will never see it. But somebody can breathe through it whether the corner is straight or not. So now I have these two pieces that are sewn together with my pieces on it, and then I put them together, right sides together, which remember this is the wrong side. So this is the right side, like that, just being a little careful. And then you just stitch it up with just like a 1/4 inch, a 1/2 inch, not a big seam, just enough. And you want to make sure that you seam it below where your string is, if your string is there, so that you'll end up, this is what you'll end up with. You'll end up with a little purse, like that, and then you turn it right side out. If you have strings, you can pull on the strings. If you don't have strings, you just turn it right side out. Bazing. And so now you have, and see, that's why you have to know which side is the wrong side. So now you have this. I usually take it to the ironing board at this point, but it's not necessary. But if I take it to the ironing board, I have to create a tube at the top for my pipe cleaner. And because the fabric is a little bigger than the batting, I have enough that I can do a double turn there, and it's still wide enough for my pipe cleaner, although this is barely wide enough. You might want to make it just a little big like that. It'll make it easier like that. And so I find it easier to iron that in place. You don't have to. You can just do it with pins. You can just do it with your hands. But once you get to this one, and you've gotten this ready to do, then what you have to do is you have to quilt it. Because if you don't put some stitching across the batting, as it washes, the batting is going to end up in one big ball right in the center. So we need to make an X across it, and you need to sew all 4 sides of the batting, but the 4th side can be sewn when you make your tube. If you want to be artsy about it, it's really pretty. You can put a fancy stitch here and let the fancy stitch go through. Just depends how many you're trying to make and how much pressure you feel to get them done fast. This is fast. The fancy stitch is lovely. And I think it being lovely and making people feel like somebody really cares about them and puts some conscious thought into it is part of what helps protect people. I haven't gone so far to the fancy stitch yet, but I do my best to make them as good as I can make them within reason, considering what our real objective is here, which is to get them into people's hands fast. So now I've got this one. Now when I stitch this one down, I don't stitch it all the way, because this is going to be where I'm going to put my ribbons in. So first I just put the straight line across, then I have my pipe cleaner, and my pipe cleaner just slides right in. Yep, pretty easily. And sometimes you have to manipulate it just a little bit to get it sort of all the way in. It's slightly shorter. It comes about to here. And I put a line here and a line here of stitching, because strangely these pipe cleaners have a lust to wander. And they just sort of try to get to the end and they try to get out. And I find if I pin them in, they're better. And if for some reason this hem is notably wider than the pipe cleaner, I also will put a double channel right there. And then, so I'm up to here, I've got the pipe cleaner in it. Then I take my other 2 ribbons. Let me just find a spare ribbon. Here's a spare ribbon. And I slide it in, just stick it in like that. And then I will do a zigzag on it, because these are going to get pulled on pretty continuously. People may want to make them pretty tight. So I'll put this in, do a zigzag, sometimes a double zigzag, just to make sure. So then the nice thing about doing it this way is that these all end up pretty solid, and it won't be annoying to people to have it fall apart. So now we are at this stage where we have a pipe cleaner, we have 4 strings, we have quilted it properly, we've stitched all this, it's all finished, so we're almost done. And now what we have to do is we have to get it to this stage, which is pleated, and it's 3 pleats. They do not have to be symmetrical, and for some reason everyone seems to pleat a little differently. But you just get 3 pleats, and here's where the advantage of it being 9 instead of 7 comes in, because this doesn't have any batting in it. And so you're only dealing with 2 layers. Maybe if you're catching the seam, it's a little more, but you're not dealing with the batting. It's much easier to pin. You end up here. And you've got three pins on each side. Now this is still, even though you're not sewing through all the layers of batting, it's still significant. It puts your machine through its paces. So I usually do it, even though my machine will sew over pins, because of the pleating here, the teeth don't grab it all that well, and so when it meets a pin, at least my machine kind of has a hissy fit. So I don't like to break needles, and I don't like the sound it makes when it hits the pin. So I kind of just like mother it through really carefully. And just as the needle catches the pleat, I pull the pin out. And so I don't ask it to go over the pleats. And my machine works is much happier when I do that. You can sew it from either side. It really doesn't matter. And when you're done, what you end up is this. And I use a zigzag on the pleats because there's a lot of stress there and it's a lot of fabric. But I just do 1 zigzag. If I didn't do a zigzag, I would stitch it probably at least twice, maybe even 3 times. And I always check to make sure I've caught the pleats, but pretty much nowadays I always catch the pleats. Then you end up with this fetching garment, which I'm getting kind of used to it. All of us in our community are walking around wearing them. One of our community leader is a medical doctor who was a surgical nurse before, so to her, seeing people wearing masks is absolutely normal. She's just so used to it. We're all trying to be like Arab women and learning to talk just with our eyes. And we're all getting actually rather good at it. It's kind of fun. And the fact that they're pretty, and the fact that I'm using all these different remnants, so everybody has a different mask, or you can flip it around, and people who wear them every day have 2, because 1 to wash and 1 to wear. I highly recommend it. It's very, very gratifying also at this particular time to be able to do something that really works. So any of you people who can sew, who like me have boxes of fabric that you've never been willing to let go of all these years, store clerks, postal clerks, Amazon drivers, when I start walking around in this, my neighbors have stopped me. I've shown them how to make them, taken the materials over to them. People who've been going grocery shopping, the grocery clerks are asking, can you make some for the employees here? So this is a really, really good way to get involved to help our world right now. And I hope this video will help you get into it. After a few days or a week of having these masks, there's a few little tricks that we've learned about wearing them. They're not comfortable in the sense that it's much nicer to have your face. Yes, it is harder to breathe through them. That is, in fact, exactly the point. So there's no way to adjust it so that it would be as easy to breathe as if you're not wearing it, but we are not in normal times. So here's something about it. There's a wire across the nose, and if you bend it into a really strong V like that, not a curve like that, but just a really strong V, then it will keep it below your eyes and up on your nose, because the point is to get it on so you don't have to mess with it, don't have to be touching your face all the time. So most of the time, this top strap, is like this, and people can put the bottom one around your neck like that. But Joyce also figured out that you can tie the top one on your top of your head like this, make a pretty little bow, and look absolutely ridiculous, especially those of you who have fabric things like this or big elaborate bows, so we can all just look completely silly and really enjoy ourselves. It might also be possible to tie these 2 pieces together and then just sort of drape it over your ears as if it were elastic. You could form-fit it yourself that way. But no matter what you do, your face and your mouth and your nose are going to be covered with the mask. And so we all just have to literally exhale and just accept that this is what we're doing. Okay, that's my 10-second tutorial. Enjoy yourself. We're all having lots of fun. God is with us. Bless you all.